Hello everyone, back tuning into the March 2019 ENSO update. So we're going to have a look at what's happening in the equatorial Pacific Ocean in terms of El Nino. We've had a weak El Nino during the past few months over the winter of 2018-19. Last month's ENSO update in February was quite interesting because it did show a strengthening of El Nino across the equatorial Pacific Ocean. But occurred in February, which is unusual. That's quite late to see strengthening of ENSO. So we're going to see what's happened over the past month since February's El Nino update, and I'll bring you up to date with all of the latest developments very shortly. Just say that JMA Friday has been released today, as always on a Friday, your monthly look ahead, and also the regular week to 10-day video update as well. So have a look at that. They're both on the homepage at Gazovitz. Have a look to see what's going on. I'll talk about tomorrow's videos very shortly. So we're going to start off by having a look at the cold and warm episodes by season chart from CPC and NOAA. So this is showing every El Nino and La Nina event, every warm and cold event back to 1950 on a tri-monthly basis. So for example, in 1953 through to 1954, we actually had an El Nino during that period. So you see these red numbers just here through 1953. And going through into 1954 as well. So a very slight weak El Nino through the winter, through much of 1953 into winter of 53-54. And then that reversed into a La Nina, into a cold event through the rest of 1954. And then that La Nina lasted through 1955. It's even kept going into 1956. So the red numbers are depicted by depicting positive El Nino conditions. So when you've got those positive red numbers, that's an El Nino. The negative blue numbers are depicting a cold event. They're depicting La Nina. So if we scroll down to the very latest in terms of 2018-2019, see what's been going on. We began 2018 with a weak La Nina that reversed into ENSO neutral condition. And then from the tri-monthly period of September, October, November, which is very late on, from that tri-monthly period, we go into El Nino threshold. So we go to plus 0.7. Now you'll notice that that is not coloured red though yet. So to get an El Nino designated, you have to reach very strict criteria. You have to be half a degree or more above average. 0.5 is the all-important number. And you have to do that over 5 tri-monthly periods. So our first tri-monthly period is for September, October, November. Then the next tri-monthly period also reaches the required temperature threshold. That's October, November, December. That comes out at plus 0.9, nearly 1 degree above average. Then November, December, January, also reaching the required temperature threshold at plus 0.8. And then the last tri-monthly period that we've got, the first of 2019, is for December, January, February. That also comes out at 0.8. So far we have had 4 tri-monthly periods that have reached the required temperature threshold to get an El Nino designated. We've got 1, 2, 3, and that is before just there. So we need one more number coming out above at 0.5 degrees in this box next month. If that happens, you'll see these numbers go red, and then we will have had an official El Nino. We have had a weak El Nino anyway, but it will be formally designated on this chart as a weak El Nino, and the numbers will suddenly go from black to red. So when this updates at the beginning of April, it will be covering the tri-monthly period of January, February, March. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. I suspect it will show an El Nino. We know that through February we had strengthening of El Nino. I'll go down in a second. We had strengthening of the El Nino signature in February. I think that will guarantee that when this updates next month, you'll see those numbers going red. And we may actually see this tri-monthly period here actually coming out a little bit stronger, which is quite unusual, a little bit stronger than the one before it. It might be something like 1.0. That would be very unusual for that to happen, because normally it would be a weakening period within ENSO. So, for example, you see back in 2015, 2016, we had the Super Nino. We reached our peak with that Super Nino in this tri-monthly period, actually for November, December, January, plus 2.6 above average, very intense El Nino. But by this tri-monthly period, January, February, March, that was beginning to fall back. It fell back to 2.2 degrees above average. So this would normally be a declining period of ENSO. So it'll be interesting to see what happens anyway next month. But I do think we'll have El Nino formally designated when this updates next month. So this is how the sea surface temperature anomalies were looking in the ENSO region when we did February's ENSO update. So, of course, this is the area that we're talking about, this area of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean just here, from Peru, which is just there, to Indonesia, which is over there. The orange colours are depicting the El Nino event, so yellow, orange, red, more intense it gets, but stronger is the El Nino event that's taking place. You see, it was a very weak El Nino, although it did have strengthening of El Nino through February. It was a very weak El Nino overall, but that's how things were looking last month. This is the very latest. So there hasn't been all that much change over the past month, actually. That strengthening of the El Nino signature that we saw during February has backed off during March. So I suppose that's the key headline about this. We haven't seen continued and renewed strengthening of El Nino. I think we're just sitting very much where we was last month. We haven't seen a particular weakening of El Nino, though, so that's the other thing to say. At this point, we would normally be weakening and unravelling these ENSO events. So we're just sticking very much where it was back in February, which is quite unusual. We would normally expect a further decline in the sea surface temperature anomalies to have taken place from February through to March. You'll notice we do have one little area of colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies just there. I don't think that's taking us towards La Nina, but I think that's just very shallow waters close to the coast of Peru and Mexico. It's very shallow waters just there in near the coast, subject to rapid temperature changes with weather conditions. So I suspect they probably had some cool weather around that part of the world, maybe a deep area of low pressure, or something's happened to cause a cooling of the very shallow waters, comparatively shallow waters, close to that coast of Mexico and Africa. But in these deeper waters, where the changes are much slower and much more cyclical, there we see very little change over the past month. So we still have the weak signature of El Nino, but we haven't strengthened it further over the past month. This is how things looking with subsurface temperature anomalies. So these are sea surface temperature anomalies, but this is how things looking at depth underneath the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. So you kind of think this is the surface of the Pacific Ocean just here, Equatorial Pacific Ocean. We'd have Peru, South America just there, and we would have Indonesia over here. So this would kind of like be the central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. And of course, got the depths along the side. So very deep ocean, of course, going right way down to 300 meters. Now you'll see that there is a large mass of warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies at depth in the Equatorial Pacific Ocean, and between around 150 and 200 150 and 200 meters, I should say, not millimeters, meters. We see that we have got a really intense area of warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies now, going up to around 4 to 6 degrees above average. On the surface, it's nowhere near as warm as that. You'll see it on the surface, it's only around a degree above average. But at depth, you go further down, we do have a large mass now of intense subsurface temperature anomalies. Now, if those very high subsurface temperature anomalies, those very warm subsurface temperature anomalies, move up on into the surface, then we will see this El Nino accelerating. It's not guaranteed that those subsurface temperature anomalies will move up to the surface. So they might stay at depth and then eventually they might start to dissipate. So just to keep a close eye on that. But certainly when you get to that sort of temperature anomaly at depth in the extra-Pacific Ocean, kind of like going to 4 to 6 degrees above average. That's a very intense, warmer than average anomaly, and we may see that strengthening the El Nino signature over the next few months. We'll have to wait and see. One of the reasons that we haven't seen any further strengthening of this El Nino during the past month, not on the surface anyway, is because the SOI has backed away. That's the Southern Oscillation Index. So you remember last month, one of the big stories, I think it was last month, that we featured the SOI, and there was a real crash going on with the Southern Oscillation Index during February. It went very, very negative indeed, and it's an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state in the Southern Pacific Ocean. So when the SOI is in its negative phase, the atmosphere is very much reflective of an El Nino event. And we went into a strong El Nino in terms of what the atmosphere was doing in February, indicated by a very negative Southern Oscillation Index. So this graph actually showing things quite nicely. This is how things were on the 20th of February. The red line showing the increasing negativity of the SOI, plunging through sort of late February into early March to that sort of level, going down to around -16. But recently it started coming back up again. So it's still negative, it's still got negative SOI. The atmospheric state is still reflective of El Nino, but the SOI is nowhere near as negative as it was at times during February. You can actually still see some of those very negative numbers within the SY that we had back in February. So that's the 20th of February just there, coming out at -38.91. And that's the 21st of February, coming out at -27.76. Those are very, very negative numbers indeed. And that was telling us that the atmospheric state had gone into a strong El Nino type setup. And that was driving the increase in those warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies. Now, if we scroll up to what's happened during March, you'll see that through early March, the numbers were far less negative. So, for example, here we are on the 1st of March, when we actually went slightly positive with the SY, but that didn't last so very long. 3rd of March is kind of like -5, 4th of March is -2, and so on, up we go, until it starts to get a bit negative again around the 11th and the 12th, going down to -16, -14. The 14th of March actually goes down to -17. That's really quite a negative number for the SY. But again, that's backed away over the past few days. So we come further up to this chart. If we can get the highlighter ready, there we go. And we can see it on the 15th, it was at -8. The 16th, it was at -9. 17th, it was at -9 again. 18th at -8, 19th only at -1, virtually back to neutral with the SY, 20th at -3, and 21st at -5. And so what this tells us is that the atmosphere in the Southern Ocean is still in an El Nino setup, but it's in quite a weak El Nino setup now. It is not in that strong El Nino setup that we had back during February, and so that's the reason that we haven't seen further strengthening of the sea surface temperature anomalies this month in the extra-Pacific Ocean. So these events, to really get an El Nino or a La Nina event to take off, to spiral, you need both the atmosphere and the ocean to couple with one another. Now, we know we have got plenty of warmer than average sea surface and subsurface temperature anomalies in the extra-Pacific Ocean, and that allows strengthening of the El Nino during February, but during March, because the atmosphere is backed away from that strong El Nino setup, it's just left us kind of like where we was back in February. So we are still within El Nino condition, both in terms of the extra-Pacific Ocean and in terms of the atmospheric setup. It's just that we haven't seen any further strengthening over the past month. But that doesn't mean we won't see strengthening in the coming months. And this Albert CFS V2 is forecasting ENSO to go through the remainder of the year. So we've got the temperature anomalies on the side and the dates are along the bottom. Now, this was forecasting, the black dash line is the ensemble mean, by the way. The other coloured lines are just individual members of the CFS ensemble plume. Last month, the CFS was forecasting us to go to around 2 degrees above average, I think. So it's actually going for quite a strong, it's going for a strong El Nino to be in place by the summer. That's been pulled back quite a bit over the past month, so I suspect that was in response to the collapse of the Southern Oscillation Index. Now, it is still going for strengthening of El Nino through the spring, which is quite unusual. And it's forecasting this to peak around July, which again, very unusual. Normally, these events peak around Christmas. It's forecasting a peak in July of around 1.5 degrees above average. And then we stick at that level and gradually show a slight drop as we get through to the autumn and into the end of the year. Now, I would suspect that's very unlikely to occur like that. I think if we're at 1.5 degrees above average in July, where we'll go from there is that we'll have further strengthening. It'll probably become quite a strong El Nino. Conversely, if this black dash line gets pulled down further, so that by July we're actually around ENSO neutral, then we could either stay at ENSO neutral through the second half of the year, we might go into weak El Nino, or we might drop down even into a La Nina. So all bets are off, really, if this is at, if this is around ENSO neutral, around here. All bets will be off if that's where we are in July, in the summer. But at the moment, the CFS is still forecasting El Nino to continue and to strengthen to some degree into the summer. So it's going to be really interesting to see what that's showing next month. We're at the spring predictability barrier now, where these models will always struggle to see where ENSO is going to go next. CFS is favouring El Nino to continue, though, and possibly to some degree to strengthen them. The ECMWF is looking like this. So again, a bit of a mess really with the ECM. Again, we've got the temperature anomalies along the side, dates along the bottom. So starting off around here, of course. So we're just in weak El Nino threshold. We get through to the summer, and we have got a big sort of scatter within the ensemble plume. So couple of members are going for a super Nino over 2 degrees above average. Other members are actually taking us almost to weak La Nina condition by the autumn. But bear in mind, those are cold outliers and these are warm outliers. So the broad thrust of the ensemble plume is actually around here, which is just keeping us really, really where we are at the moment, actually, around weak El Nino threshold through the summer and into the autumn. It does show a little bit of a strengthening of El Nino to the summer. So again, let's get rid of all those lines. That's where we are now. By sort of June, July, it has us sort of there. So a little bit of a strengthening over the next couple of months. But overall, it looks like we keep pretty much where we are with most of those ensemble blue members from the ECM, which is in weak El Nino territory. Again, that's coming up against the spring predictability barrier, so we'll know more in a month or two's time. And then finally, we've got the Jams Tech. And Jams Tech is looking like this. So, again, the temperature anomalies are on the side. The dates are along the bottom. So, sticking roughly around sort of weak El Nino territory through into April, that sort of period. But by the summer and the autumn, actually, it's declining away. And it's falling to ENSO neutral. Jams Tech wants to take us back to ENSO neutral through the summer and into the autumn, with one or two outliers actually going down into a La Nina. Those ones just there want to go down to a La Nina. Conversely, these ones want to keep us El Nino. So, from a model perspective, it really is all up for grabs still. They're coming up against the spring predictability barrier, and they can't really see where it's going to go next, I don't think. So, the CFS is quite bullish to keep this El Nino going. ECM sort of wants to keep the CFS, by the way, not only keeps is bullish about keeping El Nino going, it wants to strengthen it through to the summer and keep it at that pretty moderate sort of El Nino level through the remainder of the year. ECM is kind of like going for a continuation of weak El Nino, and Jamstack wants to drop this back to ENSO neutral by the end of the summer and into the autumn. So it's all up for grabs, really, about where this is going in the next few months, and I think we'll know more in a couple of months' time. I suspect this uncertainty will continue for a little while longer. By the time we get through to May, June, we should have a much clearer idea about where things are going. The big point, though, is that the strengthening of the El Nino that took place during February has not continued during March. We've maintained the level that we were at February, haven't seen a fallback in the temperature, but on the other hand, we also haven't seen a continued increase. So at the moment, it's all rather stable. We should wait and see what it's showing next month. Right, that's it for your ENSO update for March. Do it all over again in April. Don't forget to check out JMA Friday and our week to 10-day video update. Tomorrow we've got weekend forecast coming out for you as always on a Saturday, and also we'll have a week to 10-day video update tomorrow as well. More summer analogues will be with you on Sunday, as well as the Gals Lovely Sunday roundup. So keep checking that for all of the updates. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.